Chapter 15 of A Lucky Penny by a Self-Made Man. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 15, in which Dick falls into the hands of Dr. Hawke again. Mr. Rockwell had employed a private detective agency to investigate Mr. Sleek, with the view of finding out the object of that smooth individual and wishing to rid himself of his nephew. Reports were occasionally made on the matter by the agency, but so far their representative had not been able to penetrate the mystery. It was not deemed advisable to bring about a public exposure of Mr. Wick's industrial farm until they were ready to proceed against Dr. Hawke on behalf of Dick Rogers. When the time came, Tom and Mr. Rockwell hoped to be in a position to force the hypocritical Bentley Wicks to appear as a corroborative witness against the physician, who was to a certain extent kept under surveillance. Nearly a year had now elapsed since the night of Tom and Dick's escape from the farm. The lame boy was quite a new being. Good care and a congenial atmosphere of interesting books and studies were having their beneficial result. He was now a happy, healthy boy of 16, and one of his chief delights was the occasional visit of his chum to the school. As for Garland himself, he was progressing famously in business, and was making very good money for a boy of his age. The money he had made out of his boxwood speculation he had invested through Mr. Rockwell in a fine suburban villa, which had been sold at a bargain to close an estate. "By the way, Tom," said his employer one day, "I've had a good offer for that house of yours." "Have you?" said the boy. "Do you think I'd better sell it?" "I would advise you to do so, as you can double your money." "Very well, then. I authorize you to do so. It's funny, but I was thinking of speaking to you on the subject, for I had just heard of another bargain in real estate I'd like to get a hold of. It will take about $5,000 to swing it. It's a 2-family brick house in Brookline, about to be sold under foreclosure proceedings. It is worth all of $8,000 or even more, but I know of a drummer who is on the lookout for just such a place. I don't know of any easier way of making a profit of $3,000 than that." Mr. Rockwell had implicit confidence in Tom's judgment in business matters. "Well, Tom, if you think it's worthwhile, I'll loan you the necessary funds to make the deal, and in the meantime I'll take up the offer for your house and put the sale through." "Thank you, sir," answered the boy gratefully. The result was that within the month Garland had made a profit of $2,500 on his house and $3,000 on a double tenement transaction. His bank account now footed up something like $9,000, and as he didn't like his capital to remain idle at a small interest, he kept his eyes open for any good thing which might happen to turn up. Besides, he had his 20 acres of land in the vicinity of Jamaica Plains, which a prominent real estate man had recently appraised at $4,000. Summer came on again, and Mr. Rockwell and his family took possession of his villa at Swampscott, as was his custom. Tom was invited to spend his vacation with them, and, of course, Dick Rogers was included. The great attraction for our young hero was Amy Dent, now 16, with all the piquant charms of a little budding beauty. They walked, talked, and sang together, went sailing together, so that anyone could see with half an eye that the two young people were very much interested in each other. Very often, however, they took Dick and little May with them. Such was the case one warm, starlit night in July, when the four left the private wharf of the Rockwell villa in the small sloop yacht Amy, which Mr. Rockwell had purchased especially for short summer cruisings along shore. There was a nice breeze offshore, and Tom, who was something of a practical yachtsman, headed the boat for blue water. "Isn't it a lovely night?" remarked Miss Amy as she reclined negligently on the cushioned seat which encircled the cockpit. "It's all right. What do you think about it, Dick? You haven't opened your mouth since we left our moorings." "You mustn't mind me. I was thinking." "It seems to me you're always thinking these days. Well, what were you thinking about?" "I was thinking whether, if I threw the end of my fishing line overboard well baited, I should catch anything or not." "You might try and see. That's the best way to find out." Thus encouraged, Dick made the attempt, but after a quarter of an hour there didn't seem to be anything doing in the fishing line. Finally he pulled his line in to look at the bait, and with it came a seaweed, consisting of a long, cylindrical, hollow stem, gradually expanding into a leaf some 10 inches in breadth. "What a curious weed, isn't it, Dick?" said Amy, leaning over while the lame boy examined it with great interest. "Yes," answered Dick. "This plant is called by our fishermen and sailors the Devil's Apron." "What a funny name," she said, feeling the weed gingerly. "What's that at the end of it?" It was a horse mussel as large as a man's hand, clinging to the roots of the weed, which, together with small pebbles, had served as an anchor to keep it at the bottom. After looking at the roots attentively for a few minutes, Dick pointed out about a dozen snake-armed starfish wound around the tendrils. "This species," said Dick, who was pretty well informed on the subject, "is found only in deep water, and as a rule can only get got by dredging. You see, it consists of a small central disc of the size of a dime and 5 long, slender, spiny arms, which twine like serpents among the roots of the seaweed." The lame boy also pointed out upon the dripping mass something that looked like a large drop of blood. "This is an ascidian." "Oh," said Amy, apparently not very much enlightened. She regarded it with some curiosity and found it was a small, flat, leathery disc of a red color, of little thickness, but still sufficient to hold a variety of organs, gills, liver, stomach, etc. At least so Dick said, and Amy was willing to take his word for it. While she was examining the thing, Dick found something else. "Why, here's a gastropod mollusk," he explained. "Oh, come off it, Dick," said Tom, butting in good-naturedly. "One would fancy you were a professor explaining marine phenomena to your class. Take another shy at a fish." "I don't believe I'll get a bite," replied Dick, shaking his head doubtfully. The lame boy, however, threw his line overboard again, while Amy came over and sat beside Tom once more. They had been an hour on the water, and were some distance out, heading up the coast, when a change came almost imperceptibly over the face of the night. A mist was crawling up from the southeast, blotting out the stars and casting a peculiar, weird effect over the ocean in that direction. The young people did not observe the change until their attention was attracted by a low rumbling sound in the distance. "But gee!" exclaimed Tom, waking up suddenly to the situation. "I guess it's back to Swampscott for us as quick as we can get there." "Why, what's the matter?" asked Amy in surprise. "There'll be something doing before long, or all weather signs go for nothing. I believe there's a thunderstorm coming up." He brought the sloop about and headed shoreward. Then it became apparent that the wind was rapidly dying away. In Tom's eyes this was a bad sign for them, and he didn't like it. At length the sail showed a tendency to flap, and inside of 10 minutes the pretty sloop had lost all headway and was drifting up the coast in the direction of Fang Ledge, a large spindle-shaped rock, which rose 30 feet above the high tide and from which projected a spur of rock, only the extreme point of which, 15 yards away, was exposed at low water but was completely swept by the sea at high tide. In the course of half an hour the tide grounded Amy on the south side of Fang Ledge. Tom took off his shoes, rolled up his trousers legs, and stepped ashore. He fended the sloop off and drew her around under the lee of the spindle, where she could float in safety until the wind came up again. As there was a snug little aperture in the rock, well out of reach of the water, he advised his party to go ashore and take possession of it until the thunderstorm passed over. Tom left the party in order to take another look at the sky in the southeast. The sky had now turned a jet black in that direction, and vivid flashes of lightning cut red streaks through it, followed by the mutterings of thunder. "It's coming up fast," he muttered, "and it's going to pile up a nasty sea while it lasts." As a matter of fact, he had hit the nail on the head, and the evidence was soon forthcoming. The wind and water rose almost simultaneously. It was as if the old Boreas had suddenly opened the doors of the caverns and unloosed the air in sweeping volumes. With a roar it struck Fang Ledge, and in a moment the sea was boiling all around the rock. As Tom turned to rejoin the party, a wild scream rang out from the other side of the rock. "Great heavens!" exclaimed Garland in dismay. "That's Dick's voice. What's happened to him?" A few steps carried him to the aperture in the rock where Amy and little May were huddled together in terror. The lame boy was missing. "Where's Dick?" cried Tom, a dreadful feeling of disaster to his little chum striking him to the heart. "He went around the rock that way," said Amy in trembling tones, pointing to a course opposite to that taken by Tom. "Help, Tom, help!" came in wailing accents from around the rock, but much fainter than before. Tom sprang around the rock into the very teeth of the storm, now full upon them. The dashing surf covered him with foam, but he heeded it not. "Dick! Dick!" he cried frantically. "Where are you?" A flash of lightning lit up the water, and there in a boat close to the tooth of the ledge 15 yards away, Tom saw the white face of Dr. Hawke, rowing like mad while in the bottom of the frail craft lay his chum Dick. Then darkness settled down again, and a terrible peal of thunder seemed to tear the very firmament into shreds. End of chapter 15.